So I'm an assistant professor of interactive games and media at RIT, and I also am the founder and lead researcher at our initiative in religion, culture, and policy at the Magic Center. We do a number of things there, one of which is we make games and simulations to enhance literacy in religious understandings, religious studies, and culture. So how do we help people to understand other people's religions better in the public space and other people's cultures? And what I'm talking about today is what you can learn in a Games for Learning studio. So I work with undergraduates and graduates who are game design and development majors, or they are doing graphic design and user interface. But we're working in religion and culture as well. So I'm going to give this case, which is a tabletop strategy game that we're moving to mobile, and we found out recently that the National Endowment for the Humanities is funding our mobile transition over, and we're working in medieval religious legal systems. And why might we do that? Well, games are rule-based systems, and legal systems are rule-based systems. And we hear a lot about religious legal systems being pretty terrible these days, but we don't hear about things like collaboration and cooperation. And so our game is set in North Africa in the 12th century, and we're starting out with religious text called the Mishnah Torah, Jewish text, and then we're moving into Muslim texts in our forthcoming modules. And we're modeling a village where people live and work together and have to find ways of getting along. When you first look at a religious legal text, like Mishnah Torah, it can be pretty complicated because you just got a list of laws. Mishnah Torah is pretty simple, but what do you do with these laws? How do you bring them to life? Or if you're thinking about the Talmud, complex debates, how do you take this page, which normally would have to do deep textual study, and bring that to life? And so we look for inspiration to games like tabletop games, like Agricola, that have worker placement and complex resource management. And these games are brought from the table, often to the phone as well. So we're thinking about how to move this to something like this, where people play around a table and people play on their phone. And how do we do that? We're sitting and we're doing deep dives into the religious legal text, and then we're doing paper prototyping. So we're not spending all our money up front on coding or on printing our beautiful cards, but we're looking at things like working with experts, looking at architecture, looking at mosaic patterns. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the cultural milieu? Here's some Kufic text. What does the text look like? What are our artifacts looking like? And we work with scholars who are specialists in these areas to help us. And then we prototype and we iterate and we try to make an engaging game first, but underneath it is learning. And so other experts that we work with are Ian Schreiber here, working in core mechanics, game mechanics, what things you do over and over in a game that make it engaging and fun. How do you balance it so the statistical analysis in the game works so that every player has a chance to participate? And then we do play testing. We play test internally, and then here's us at GLS last year, the Games Learning Society in Madison, Wisconsin, doing external play tests with people who've never seen it before, and only then do we start to do coding. So we've built this game that is compelling before we even get to the stage of that. So the kinds of learning that we're thinking about are deep textual dives, because in order to build this, you have to become a teacher in it. You have to know these legal texts. There are people I can turn to on the team and say, what's footnote 4 for halacha 7? There's maybe 1 or 2 Jewish people on the team, but we've got 20 people who are not, and they need to come up and understand these texts at a deep level, modeling cases, considering minority opinions, and understanding that cultural and historic milieu, because it's critical when thinking about religion and culture to say when and where. Alongside, they're learning game design and core mechanics and balancing and graphic design and illustration and play programming and project managing. How do you actually make these large projects happen in an intra and cross-team collaboration? And I'd say most importantly, perhaps, is that the subject matter matters deeply underneath the system. For me, even working with students who are game design and development students, what are the underlying values and sources that we're trying to look at? And so everyone who's coming on the team isn't just looking at Mishnah Torah, right? Even though we're not at the module where we're teaching Muslim law, they're looking at the Distinguished Jurist Primer, for example, and understanding the similarities and how scholars are trading between, and legal scholars like Maimonides are studying Muslim scholars like Averroes and Al-Ghazali, and it goes back and forth. And so no one, hopefully, would come out of this knowing this, and someone could say to them, well, Sharia law is the seat of all evil. Well, wait a second. In North Africa in the 12th century, it actually happened to be a lot about collaboration and cooperation as well. So that's what we're working on. I say the subject matter under these things matters, and I hope that we, when we're using game design to teach, that we keep that at the core. Thank you very much.